right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was part of the group that went to San Pedro Sula. And where's Jimmy? So before we go into this, we do want to talk about Jimmy. When we arrived, not prior to leaving, but when we arrived in Honduras, we found out that he actually has some alter egos. One of them is Demetrius, and that's a pretty nice guy. We saw him a lot. And then there's a Santiago that likes to not share his gum and his snacks. But anyway, so once we got there, we had to call him Demetrius.
Or Santiago.
Yeah.
Well, let's make sure that Demetrius is the word for James or Jimmy in Greek. Santiago is in Spanish, so that was my two alternate.
Yeah, it was really a fun thing that
funny.
we found out. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's when we were catching our flights. So the first day we got there, when did we get there? About 2 o'clock their time?
We immediately went to the Bordeaux. So
Yeah.
this is the Bordeaux. It's like a community. Would you say it's like a community under the bridge area? And it's full of poverty. Clearly, you can see there's a lot of trash. That was like pretty eye-opening for us. When we got there, we saw all this trash and like the kids were playing around in it, and it's pretty crazy. Do you say anything about that?
Yeah, so like the kids, one thing that we found interesting was they were having as much fun as like what our kids here would be having. They were just in the circumstances, the joy that they had nothing to do with their circumstance. That was just, I know one little guy was playing over by us and he had this little, I don't even know what it was. It was like something he had picked up and he had the cord wrapped around it and he was so excited to show us how he would throw it off and then it would come back. And he was just cracking up about that. But also that picture to the right, the bridge, like we kept hearing about the bridge that was being built. Yeah, so back to the left of it is where it had fallen off. They had moved it back towards this way. Yeah, we couldn't see it. Anyway, but the bridge is there because the kids walk through that water and it's, there's sewage in it. You can smell it when you go down there. And it actually, this, to me, if you can relate it to like going to a dumpster, I mean, that's really what this place looked like. And people live there. And they were very happy.
They play and they're not happy about the bridge. But.
Yeah. So the bridge, like the need for the bridge, it had been built and then it was carried away by the rain. And the reason I believe we went down there was, what's the lady's name?
Esley. Is it Esley?
Esley, yes.
The one you guys work with a lot. And she was advocating for getting that bridge rebuilt as soon as possible, even though it was rainy season, to have it rebuilt. So they were kind of talking about how to do that. And for us, it was kind of a very eye-opening event to see how important that bridge was. We actually saw students that had their uniforms on walking through the water. And then actually I looked over and there was a lady being carried across the water in a wheelchair. And from that water, there's some people that you had pictures of that were sent you where they're getting sores on their feet from the dirty water. So
that was like, right away we already saw, like within an hour of being there, however long.
Carrie, let me share. I got an email from Honduras today.
Mm-hmm.
That bridge will be finished in 15 days and it will be almost as high as that water line or electrical line going across.
Oh, wow.
So it was the first attempt, it did wash it away, but we're repairing that and it'll be done in 15 days.
It was kind of neat to see how Jimmy and the group, they sit around and talk about, like I think the first perception was like, we're not gonna rebuild it until after the rain, like until after the season of rain. But the need was so great and it was talking back and forth and negotiating that and now hearing that it'll be done in this many days showed how they were able to have like a pulse on that community and what was needed at that time, so. Okay, what do we got? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So like if you can think of a 4-lane highway, like I don't know, 75, these are on the side of a road, on the highway. It's a 4-lane highway. And there are fruit stands lining both sides of it. It was interesting. I don't know if anybody's ever been through the Smoky Mountains or Tennessee and how the curving and up and down hills, that's what this was. On the side of the road, they would have little fruit stands like this. So I just thought that was
interesting.
Yeah.
We got fruit.
Yeah, we did.
Really good. It was very good fruit.
Yeah, and they were hanging up in the thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We just thought that was an interesting thing. So that was once we got up to Casa de Charlie. That is the actual, like from the porch, if you look out, that's the view that you see. And then Shai pointed that little road. So when we were up there,
It's right here.
yeah, there was this little road that, I mean, we didn't have any internet or any kind of nothing. So we're sitting there, and I was just thinking, like, when I left, it's like really busy on my job. Like, I know a lot of people that teach, you're like kind of dying. Well, the end of May, June, that is my busiest time at work. So there was nothing I could do. I couldn't check my email. But we had decided that we were going to watch the traffic on that little road. And that was instead of checking email. So every once in a while, we would see a truck, and then we would see a donkey, and motorcycle, or just somebody walking. But it was just so peaceful there. And it was just nice to not think about anything except that moment.
For me too, it was really neat. I probably stared at that view most of the time.
Yeah.
But at night, there's a city right here, and it was really neat just like watching it light up at night.
Okay, so that was our first day up there.
Planting the
right?
trees. And
Yes. Yeah, so the top left is Silencio. It's where we meet like at 6 in the morning. And we just like have a devotion time to ourselves, like it's silent. Have a devotion time to ourselves, and then after that, then we get to share that with each other. And it was a really nice opportunity to start your day off. And then on the right, that was like our breakfast view every day. Like that was where we ate. All of our meals was out there.
And then in the middle,
Yeah.
if we were outside, the kids were right there with us.
Oh, yeah.
So we started planting the trees, and then here they all come trickling in. And they ended up helping us out. That's Norman. He was one of the people that we stayed with. He was her father. So he was with us a lot. But the kids helped us plant. It was really awesome. Like some of them were watching us, and one of them took over for me, and he was doing it perfect. And he's like 8 probably. I don't know. And it was just so funny. Like they're really hardworking, and like they catch on really fast. And like it was really nice. It was fun.
So we also have a picture of like where we're planting the tree on the left side here. So you really can't tell by that picture, but it was a straight
down.
drop. And there were a few people that kind of slid a little bit and caught themselves, but it was kind of a dangerous. And what you're saying about those kids, I mean, they were coming
They're
out of
like
nowhere.
monkeys. They just, because they're used to it, they just run around and it's fine.
Flip-flops.
And they go straight down, and yeah, they're wearing flip-flops, and they were a great help.
And we're like holding on to the ground trying to scoot
and they're
down.
just going.
Yeah.
It's so great. But we planted I don't know if it says this, but we planted a bunch of different fruit trees. So we had purchased them on the way up, and then it's a bunch of different, like I think there was mangoes, lemons, and avocado. There was a lot of stuff that we planted.
And they were planted there at the Casa de Charlie in order to have like fruit in a few years to be able to support themselves, to have their own food, and then also anything else that they would use with that. And Cheyenne found a little friend there.
There's a security guard. His name was Quito. His real name was Johnny, but he went by Quito. But he lived right over there, and he would like watch over the house. And somebody gave him a puppy, so we had a little buddy all week. So
Cheyenne had a little buddy.
yeah, the dogs there are everywhere too. Like they'll just come out of nowhere, and they're really nice. Like they're not like how they are here. They're really sweet. You just want to pet them, but you can't because they're probably dirty. But this one was really cute.
Yeah. So also that first day we went down and visited, it was a secondary school, and this was on a Saturday, but apparently it was like 7th and 8th grade, and we taught them English. We taught them how to pronounce some of the English that they had already been working on in their classes. So they would go to like workbook pages, and it would just be like simple sentences or words, and then we would say it how, and we, as the Ohioans, were told that we say it correctly, so they had to say it like us, because we had people from Georgia and
It was interesting though, like it was
We
weird
said it
to
right.
teach them English, because it's like, I've been in Spanish class, so like, yeah, I'm learning Spanish, but it was weird to like, they don't know my language. Like, it was
True.
weird. Another
Yeah.
thing that was funny about it was, well, it's not really funny, but just something to think about, and like, that's different there. So their schooling is a lot different, obviously, and in this classroom, they told us their ages, and there was a 13-year-old and a 26-year-old. So it was different, but they were all like on the same level education-wise. So it was different, but it was kind of neat to see that, like, oh well.
Came to learn. Right.
Yeah.
Also, another thing about the trees, we had like prayed over those before we planted them, and then later that evening, I know that it's not normally a time that it rains up in the mountains, is my understanding, Yeah, it was really neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Prayer Mountain. We actually went up there that day. I'm sure some of you have heard about that if you've read Jimmy's book, Charlie, A Man After God's Own Heart. So a lot of the stuff, I hadn't read that book since you had written it, and then going back to read it now. One of the things, like we didn't know this when we went up there, but this little bug right here, Shane, you took a picture of that.
So it was really neat. That's actually in the book too.
But we didn't know that.
Jimmy had mentioned, I think there's a picture of that in the Charlie book, and there was, but the kids were picking them up off the ground and like trying to scare us with them, and I was just trying to see what it was, and then they would throw them and it would fly away. And then like another kid picked one up and was picking off the white on it, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's killing it, and then he threw it and it like flew away. They were everywhere up there, but they weren't down where the house was.
Yeah, not at all.
It was crazy, but yeah.
So if you read the Charlie book,
It's in there, yeah.
Yeah, look near the end, and there's a picture of it in there. That kind of brought a connection for us. We thought that was really neat.
And of course, the kids followed us everywhere.
They did. Okay. What was that? Oh yeah. So that. Yeah. We can talk about that.
So this is when these two pictures here are just when we were making the piñatas and like making the bags for the kids. So we did. I don't know. I'm sure. I'll just say it because I don't know if everybody knows. When we went down there with the schools, we celebrated birthdays. So I think it was quarterly birthdays or something. It was from like May to August or May to July. So those kids received a bag, and it had like soap, toothpaste, toothbrush. There was a little toy in there. I think some of them had bracelets if they were girls, a toy car if they were boys. So when we went to the schools, we gave those to the kids. And then we also filled the piñatas, and we did a piñata with them. So that was us packing them up, all of that, our assembly line. So that was fun to do.
That day too, we kind of walked around the village. I know that you guys have probably seen that picture, some people have, but it was a really nice, the guy's name was Tolano, and he's one of the big people in the village there, and his wife had just roasted the beans the day before, and she offered coffee to some of us. I think 2 or 3 of us may have taken them up on that, but it was good coffee. It was really nice. It was a good gesture, and then he sang us a couple songs, and it was, he was very welcoming. We just got a picture of that little.
We were up at Prayer Mountain, and all of a sudden I hear this noise, turn around, this guy's coming down the hill, this kid. So they just come around and they ride these horses, and it's great, but he came out of nowhere. We just thought it was hilarious. But, yeah.
We went to, we don't have any pictures of it, but we went to Pastor Mario's church that evening too. And it was just really a humbling experience to be in there with the people from that village, and like the women would come in and they would immediately like kneel down and start praying about the service. And I just thought that was everything that they did. They would like kneel down and have prayer before that, before whatever that event was. And I thought that was a really special thing to be able to witness up there. I mean, you could really feel God's presence, not only up at the Casa de Charlie, but you could feel it inside of the church that was there as well. Oh yeah, first school. So, Cheyenne actually has a video of how we rode in on the truck, and you could just hear. Yeah, the kids were cheering and screaming, and they were so excited to see us come up. And when we got there, some of them said they hadn't slept the night before. They were so excited for this day, and just the piñatas. And were you getting ready to say something?
No, I was just gonna say when we rode down there, some of us rode in the back of the truck standing up, so like we got to see like the whole like village and stuff. It was really neat. I don't think there's a better way to see it. So if you go, you have to ride the back of the truck at least once.
Yes. Yes. And then like the dogs that run around, one of them had a little accident right where the piñata was going to be. Yeah, so he was cleaning it up. I just thought that was a funny picture.
Something that a teacher there does opposed to here.
Yeah.
Teacher here.
Yeah. You never know what a teacher is going to be responsible for. I mean, there's a view of one of the classrooms there. I think that was preschool. Yeah. Okay. The preschool room that was in that particular school, La Jolla. Yeah. Okay, and that's just more.
Too.
Yeah.
Same school.
Same school.
Yeah. Same school. This is still La Jolla. This was when we were getting ready to do the piñatas. The other Jimmy that was there, he had them sitting down and he was getting them excited for the their little uniforms.
Yeah. More from that.
That's the same school.
Same
yeah,
school.
those are just more pictures. We did jump rope. My mom did it with the kids. The girls were playing jump rope in front of the school. It was funny because it's like I remember doing that when I was a kid. So I tried it and my mom tried it.
Yeah, we jumped
We weren't
too
very
high.
good, but
Yeah, we weren't very
it's
good.
okay.
We jumped too high. We
It was so
realized that.
fun. That was the other classroom, not the preschool, but I forget what grade it was, but that was the other one. That was on the other side. There were just some things stacked up.
Open buildings, no air, no windows,
No fans.
no fans, nothing.
That's the last school.
So that was the second school.
We did a craft at this one. So some of the girls we went with, Kayla and Hope, they were the ones from Georgia. They brought crafts to do with the kids, and this was one of the crafts they did. So we helped the kids. It's the little window things where you paint in them, and then it dries, and you can hang it in a window.
Which
So-
we realized they didn't have a window to hang it in, so we had to
yeah, we improvised. But yeah, so that was neat. There was a language barrier, but it worked out. And honestly, the language barrier didn't really need much once we started working with them. So it was a fun activity to do with them. And that mango's from a tree that was out front. There was a mango tree out front. I think that's a
That's, yeah.
same school.
Same school.
These are just the kids.
Point at that kid up at the top, right, how he's diving in.
This is then after 5 pieces of candy fell out of the piñata. Even if one piece falls out, they all run like this and jump on each other and try to get to the candy. It was the funniest thing ever, and it happened at every single school.
Yes.
It wasn't just this one. Just one piece would fall out and they would jump on each other like that. It was so funny.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the view. You can see the house from there.
Yeah, so that's where we planted the trees to the left.
Right here is
That
where the
steep
trees were.
hill. We just got a view of that, and then that was
That's
from,
also the Charlie.
and that was from the back of the truck, right? You took
Yeah,
that picture.
yeah,
Okay.
those are just from the truck.
Just some views of things we saw going back and forth to those two schools. So Jimmy was checking his email. There's the truck.
That's us.
So he took a picture of that. We're in the back of that. If you
Yeah,
zoom in.
if you zoomed in, you can see 4 of us standing in the back.
Yeah, so we got one email that day.
Yeah.
So this picture over here of Rosa, that was kind of a bizarre, I don't know, it was a total God thing. We were sitting up there, and the whole time I'd been talking to Jimmy, we kept having conversations about, like, I was telling him, like, how afraid I was that, bad things were going to happen, and, like, I had just not had my feet settled, probably since my dad died. And just, it's easy to say, oh, you know all the scriptures, you know all the verses about trusting and all that stuff, but like it's just been a lot that has like happened. And so I was talking to him about that a lot. And in the middle of that, he's actually writing a book on faith, and he led from fear how that leads into not having faith and trust and those sorts of things. So, every day we were kind of talking about that, and it was amazing some of the things he was saying and the timing of all of that. And we were actually sitting on the porch at this time. It was Jimmy, myself, and Hope. And I am pretty sure you had said something about Rosa and how it would be like I needed to talk to her because she's had 4 sons that have died. And so we were just talking about that, and then his eyes kind of got big, and behind me she was walking up on the porch, and that is a true story. I'm telling you, this lady came walking up on the porch while we were in the middle of like probably day 3 or 4 of these conversations we were having. And she speaks Spanish, I do not. But so Jimmy starts looking around. He talks to her real briefly. She's talking to us. I don't understand anything she's saying. And Jimmy's like, we need somebody to, or Demetrius was like, we need somebody to translate, or what? And then Jimmy Pinnell comes walking up, right when he was saying it. And so he started questioning her about what that's like. And I had written down a couple of things because I grabbed a piece of paper and I just started writing what she was saying, like what that felt like to lose her sons and to go through that grief process. And one of the first things she said was that you cannot question God, He is supreme, that we go through trials to make us more humble, that God is going to do what He wants. And this was the translation, so I'm sure that it wasn't as harsh, but it was that God's going to do what He wants, but we still need to trust Him. And that although she had been hurt very deeply, that she was very blessed, and that she loved people so much. And even though family members or others had treated her badly, going through those difficult things, or maybe not understanding what she was going through, that she still trusted God. And that was like the biggest message and the timing of all that. And I think, Jimmy, you had even said that was a pretty big event that had happened.
I would put it up probably in the top 5 because, as you know, Carrie has lost 3 members of her family. And I'm sure the family has struggled with trust. And then at that very moment, we were talking about fear, Rosa comes up. 3 of her boys have been shot. 1 had an accident. And so here you've got Rosa with 4 in her family, Carrie with 3 in hers. And Rosa is sharing, I trust in God. I'm trusting God in all of this. And so Carrie and I, we've been talking about faith and fear. And I just thought it was a miracle. As you said, Jimmy came, we needed a translator. Rosa came, we needed someone to share with Carrie. And God brought this all about. There's fear knocked at my door, and faith answered, and fear was no more. And so that was a beautiful lesson that I think that was the purpose why she went there.
I would say probably.
I believe these trips, and I'll shut up, are for the Americans, not the Hondurans. A lot of times we think we got all this knowledge and technology and we can solve their problems, but we're the problem many times, and God's trying to solve us. So I'll turn it back over to you.
I was telling him, like, it made me think of Jeremiah 29:13, that when you seek him with all your heart, you will find him. I know that's an edited version of it, but, you know, that's one thing I think that, that was probably the biggest impression on me. If I would have gone one day, but I don't know, it couldn't have happened in one day, because it had to be a build-up of different things. And then when that came out, it was like the right time to hear that, I think. So, anyway, that was, you got anything on that, Sean? Okay. You worked really good that day. Okay, so then we went down to the school that was in the village, and it was kind of the same thing. You give out the quarterly birthday gifts. The teachers that have the birthdays get gifts as well, and then the piñata. And
These were the kids that were following us around most of the week, because they were in village, so these were like the village kids.
yeah,
You can let me more pictures of them.
yes.
Yeah, those are just some more.
So we did have a favorite.
You're not supposed to.
I know you're not
But
allowed to, but she was
Katie.
so cute.
Katie was
This
so
little
cute.
girl right here, Cheyenne, I know you saw.
Oh, she was so cute.
Well, I probably could have kidnapped her. I mean, not the dog, but I would have taken her.
Oh, yeah,
She was so cute.
She
And her
had-
smile.
She had a brother named Neymar that was just as cute,
We
so.
probably could have taken him too.
Yeah.
It was fun with that. That was the school as well.
Yeah.
Same one.
That
That
was
was
the last village school.
Okay, so that was on the way out of, when we were heading back into San Pedro Sula. We were coming down the mountain, and this was, one of the schools that we went to. It was it the 4th school? Yeah, it was the 4th school. So it was kind of on the side of a house where we just kind of pulled over, and that's the road right there. And they came down from the school and met us in the road, and then they were able to do the piñata and, have the candy, and then Santiago showed up on the right.
Right here.
He was trying to get Scooby-Doo to.
He kept hitting it.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
It was
though.
funny.
The kids loved it. They loved to see him, hitting that piñata.
This was the last school.
Yes.
Cornelia.
Yeah, so that's one that it sounds like, it's a Christian school. This was the biggest school that we
It was in
went
the
to.
city too. This one was back in the city. So.
Yeah, probably the most advanced from the other 4 schools that we had visited. This one had a little bit of air conditioning, maybe in 1 or 2 rooms. Maybe the computer lab, I think, had a little bit of an air conditioner. Not like what we have here, though. But each room we went to, the kids would have something to perform for us in English. I don't know, like maybe it was a scripture, a song.
They sang some Christian songs that we know that we've sang here before in English. So they have a lot more English under their belts. Like they were learning it. So
Yeah, and it was a big welcome for the group.
It was easy. Yeah. Those are some of the classes.
And then down on the right, the prayer plan missions got them all T-shirts.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that in that room right there, it was probably 200 degrees. And the kids had no, I mean, there was no air, and it was so hot, and they stood in those lines for, I don't know, and then they were holding up the shirts, taking pictures, and I'm just like dripping with sweat, and the kids were.
They're fine, cause they're.
Yeah, it was amazing.
They were very well behaved,
Mhm.
just very well.
Oh, the house.
The house.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been in the newsletter before, so this is the house, it's Guadalupe's, that was torn down, rebuilt, and then now we went and we painted it. So the team before us built it up, or tore it down. What did the team before us do?
Pardon?
The team before us, what did they do to this house?
They did the cement floor.
Okay, yeah.
And
They
moved
did
the
that.
dirt, yeah.
And then we painted, so, yeah, we painted this, and, this is Ricardo's son here, I think he's in one of the newsletters too. He was so excited, so he, has some disabilities, so he doesn't really like converse much or anything, he kinda just does his thing, but he was so excited, and he was jumping around and stuff, cause we were painting his house, so it was really neat to just something this small could make someone so happy, so.
It was really important to get that picture of me doing the trim, because I'm not allowed to do trim here. I know my mom and sisters, I'm never allowed to do trim, and I think I did all the trim.
Yeah,
Am
you
I
did
right?
most of it,
Even at
yeah.
the top, I was like, I'm doing this, and I did it very neatly. So, I just wanna say that, we even cleaned up the primer, so.
And you know how to use a ladder.
Oh yeah, we didn't play around with that ladder. They didn't realize, I guess, well, we don't play around. That's what I'm gonna say. So then we just, yeah.
It was just a market, that we went to. It had, there were some like fruit stands, there were flower stands, and then when we went inside, there were like souvenirs, like things that people have made or whatever. And you can go there and you can, like if they say something's $10, you can say, oh, I wanna pay $5. Like you can go back and forth. So that was an experience too, cause.
And that's where Debbie and Stephanie, that's where I picked up your guys' bracelet. So you guys know that. I told you when I left, you know, pray for me and I'll go on your behalf. And so I had to make sure I got you a little something to bring back along with my mom and sisters. So I think that's it. But
Yeah.
any questions or anything for us? We're open for any of that. Or we're done.
Yeah.
The bridge, was that a walk bridge?
It was a walk bridge, and it was on top of like, it was probably this tall, of like gallon, cement-filled buckets, and there were 3 of them, and the bridge had gone off, so they were talking about 2 or 3 of the,
2 more.
2 more higher to make the water not knock it over. The water got a hold of the bridge and pushed it off its foundation.
Are you gonna go back?
I would go back. I mean, I'd gone on vacation before, and I'm like, I'm kinda ready to go home.
Yeah.
I would have stayed.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little while longer. I would have. I mean, it was fine.
Who do you wanna take with you?
I'll go by myself. Oh, I mean, if you went, you know, you guys could go. Yeah. Yeah, Caleb. I feel like I'm teaching math in 9th grade. When you were in 9th grade. Yes. In the front row on the left is where he sat.
She remembers you.
That was a
Not a
good
good
He was my
thing.
buddy.
Not a bad thing.
No, it was good. Do you have a question?
No, I just didn't ask because I want to go to Honduras too.
He wants to
There you
go.
go.
There we go.
Um,
Seatbelting men, we're going.
Tell us about the food and the
Oh,
drink
that
and
was
stuff.
very good because Jimmy and Sandra, they make everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we didn't really like go and,
And the water, obviously, you can't drink.
You can't flush
there
stuff.
so there are some differences. So found out you can't flush toilet paper anywhere. So they all have trash cans inside the bathroom. So that's something. You can't drink the water, but when you go to restaurants and ask for water, they give you bottled water. And then, in Jimmy and Sandra's house, they have water. I don't know what it's called, but
Like
they
the
have
filtered.
they have like a filtered water thing that you could drink. So we weren't without water. And then food, everything they made was. I mean, we even had spaghetti night, so like it's
Yeah.
they make it. It's really good. She's a really good cook. So yeah, the food was good.
Spicy, not spicy.
It was fine. It was not spicy. It was not bad at all. And if it was, she would have told us. And we even ate in some restaurants, and both of them were buffet style, but it wasn't like how it is here. Because here I won't eat at a buffet, but there I did, and it was really good. Like it was made made well. It was, everywhere they take you is safe. So it was good. You can choose what you want, and there's people there that can translate. It was fine.
I forgot there was one other thing that happened when we were coming down from the mountain, and like I was saying, how it's the curvy and it's down, and we saw a lot of wrecks up there and back. And so we got through, and the brakes went out in the van that we were in. And right near, there was a place that we were gonna stop anyhow to meet the other group that was with us. And the brakes went out right, probably within a half a mile of turning in there. So we were very thankful for the timing of that. Thankful that, because I remember thinking like, man, what if these brakes go out? You know, because you think of stuff like that. Well, they did. And it was really neat to see how they had someone, they just call somebody, Carlos, is that his name?
Yeah, Carlos.
He rolls up to, because we were 2 hours from San Pedro Sula. He drives there, keeps the van, we load up in his truck and then the other truck that was there. We go back, but he stays with that van until the next morning for somebody to come out and fix it. But also, we found out later, they didn't tell us at the time, but later we found out there was some disturbances with some riots that were possibly gonna be on that road we would have traveled in. So a couple of things, the brakes went out perfect time, but it also helped us from being involved in what would have been a conflict with the police and some union members there in Honduras, because I'm not sure if you read the news, but there are, I know Chelsea read before I left, but it was like some,
Chelsea.
yeah, just kind of nervous if you knew some of that, but we felt very, very, very
It was safe. We didn't see, personally, I didn't see anything. So I would just stay offline if you plan on going, because, okay, yes, that stuff's going on, but like, don't make it an excuse, because it was fine. It was perfectly safe. We didn't go anywhere that wasn't safe. We were out at night maybe once or twice, and it was fine. Like, we stay in a group, and it's not unsafe at all.
It felt very
Like,
safe.
we were fine, absolutely fine. But, yeah. I wanna add one more thing if there aren't any more questions. Okay, so I just wanna say, I had a really good talk with Jimmy one of the days I was there. We talked for quite a while, maybe 45 minutes, I don't know. But I normally don't talk to people like that, because I'm not somebody who likes to sit and talk. So it was nice to just sit and talk with him. And I had about a million excuses on why not to go, because I don't like flying, I'm scared to go to another country and all these things. And when this came up, I kind of just pushed him aside and said I was going. And if I wouldn't have like put those excuses aside, I wouldn't have been able to go there and experience the things that I did. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I want to go on a missions trip so I can impact all these people. But I feel like when you leave, you're the one that's impacted. It's not, I mean, yes, you impacted them, but you end up more impacted than you thought you would be. So I feel like when you go, you just gotta go. You can't make excuses, you can't get online. And if you do go, I would suggest not having cell phone service or any type of Wi-Fi, because we didn't, and that made a huge difference not to have social media or people texting me or any of that. So it's nice to just go and let God work in you and just experience it. So I really think if you have the chance, just go. Don't make excuses unless you really have them. But you should go. It's worth it. So.
And I would say like knowing God, not looking at your circumstances and knowing God, but knowing God for who He truly is probably the biggest thing I got out of it, because you saw a lot of joy and you saw a lot of God there, that if you looked at the circumstances, you wouldn't have seen it. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. Hey, everyone, let's just give them a round of applause. As we've been